I would say my main tip for students who are now preparing to take the GMAT Focus or the original GMAT is stick with it. Don't be discouraged by what you feel is like a lack of progress.
So once again, welcome to our GMAT Focus video series. I'm very excited to have you on today. So just to get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your name, country, and where you're taking or what you're taking the GMAT Focus for?
Sure thing. Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Swartz. I am an American. Can't tell by the voice, but I go to school in the UK. I went to undergrad in the UK. And so I took the GMAT Focus because I'm not quite sure yet at this point what I want to do to be in my career. However, I know that most likely a master's or MBA is going to be a part of that. And so because the test scores are available for 5 years, I decided to get the GMAT out of the way now so that I could use that score in 3 to 5 years when I do decide what I want to go get higher education for.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have that piece out of the way so you can focus on the applications later.
Absolutely. We're going to have enough to worry about when it comes to the actual applications.
Yeah, definitely. Also, glad to hear. So first thing, maybe we could chat about how you prepared for the GMAT Focus. Can you tell us what materials you used, which ones you think maybe were most helpful to you?
I found the Magoosh platform to really have everything that I needed in order to do well on the test. It was kind of a one-stop shop for me. It was great. My routine essentially was I'm somebody who needed to brush up on my math skills. I did business management in undergrad, and so I haven't been in a pure math class in 4 years. I definitely needed to brush up on my, linear equations and exponent properties. And so I went through and spent about between 3 to 5 hours each weekday over the course of about 2.5 months going through the Magoosh program for relearning basically all of the different math rules. And then once I had gone through and completed all the different modules, I then spent a lot of time going through all of the practice questions, which were extremely helpful. So yeah, GMAT, the Magoosh Focus Edition for the GMAT was absolutely great. The prep materials were really useful. I mainly went through and reviewed a lot of the math sections because I'm someone who hasn't taken a pure math class in 4 years. And so I decided I really needed to brush up on my fundamental mathematical laws. And so I went through, studied for a few hours a day on the weekdays for about 2.5 months, going through each of the different math modules, and then making sure that I did the practice tests along the way. And one thing that I absolutely loved about the program was the fact that you could take essentially as many practice tests as you want. You could, every Friday, I would make sure that I would take a full-length practice test like you would on the day of the actual test, and made sure everything was in working order, and I got very used to the structure taking the test. And so when it came to the actual time to do it, I wasn't as nervous, I wasn't as scared, I was confident in my ability to perform well because the Magoosh platform allowed me to train so rigorously for it.
Awesome. I'm super glad to hear that. Did you use both the GMAT Focus and the original GMAT modules, or did you specifically go for the GMAT Focus side?
Yeah, I actually did use both. I started out using the classic GMAT modules, and then I swapped over to the Focus Edition because I wasn't sure which test I wanted to take at first. And so originally I bought all the material for the original GMAT modules. However, it was a very easy switch over to the GMAT Focus Edition. It was a bit perfect on my end too, because a lot of the stuff that they removed going into the GMAT Focus Edition was all the stuff I was bad at. So it was really nice to just focus on what I felt were my strengths on the Magoosh platform, but both the original GMAT and the new GMAT editions were both extremely easy to use. There's a lot of crossover between the two, so it wasn't any sort of shock to go into the new system, and both UIs are great. And so overall, I had a very positive experience on both.
So I think you mentioned concepts on some of the original GMAT that was removed for the Focus edition was things that you were like not as strong at. Was that the main reason you decided to go with Focus edition?
There are two main reasons as to why I chose the new updated GMAT Focus edition compared to the classic GMAT edition. Number one, kind of selfishly, I found that the stuff that was removed moving onto the GMAT Focus edition, namely being a lot of the geometry as well as the sentence correction within the verbal section, I found that I was less good at. I was less strong within those categories. So it was kind of natural for me to want to take the test, which I felt I was better prepared for and had greater strengths in. And then additionally, because I am most likely not going to be applying within this next round for MBAs or master's programs, I decided I would want to use the updated version so that when it comes 3 to 5 years down the line, I would have a test score that was more in line with the other pool of applicants as well. And so I figured if they were moving on to a new system, I would want to utilize the new system to put my best foot forward in the next few years.
Yeah, having that score that it's like easier for the committees to compare other focus scores. And then a last thing on prep, do you have any tips for students preparing for the GMAT Focus edition?
I would say my main tip for students who are now preparing to take the GMAT Focus or the original GMAT is stick with it. Don't be discouraged by what you feel is like a lack of progress. My whole journey, I wasn't seeing the results I wanted until I put in, almost 2 months into my studying. The nature of studying for a lot of these standardized tests means that you are applying a lot of different types of knowledge on the exam. You're going to have to pull from a lot of different subject areas within both within the verbal section, within the quant section, and of course within the data insight section. And so, at least in my experience, I found that I was not able to properly apply each of those different areas of knowledge until I had really learned that entire breadth. And so don't be discouraged if there is this long stretch of time in the beginning where you are mainly focused on just building up that knowledge, building up that repertoire in all of these different subject areas. And so when it comes time to take a practice test, you aren't able to fully apply each of the different knowledge areas and you feel like you're getting lower scores than you should be. Because that was definitely the experience with me. I felt like I should be scoring 50, 70 points higher than what I was actually getting. And it was extremely frustrating for a long time, but stick with it, put in the hours, just keep working, and I promise you will eventually see those results that you have been working very hard to get.
Thank you. That is really encouraging, I'm sure, to hear because, like you said, it's such a long journey studying and it sometimes feels like the end is so far in sight.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so going hand in hand with that, it is just give yourself enough time to study. Most likely it's going to take longer than you think it will. I ended up having to push back the date of taking the test because it ended up just needing to take a little bit more time to study to get the result that I want. Because ultimately it is better to put in the time and maybe apply a round later or for the next year if you are able to get a score that you're really happy with, or overall spend the time that you need on an application, because it takes time. And so really make sure that you have enough time. It's not the end of the world if you need to push stuff back or if you aren't feeling like you aren't getting the results that you want. So really just stick with it, have that tenacity, and I promise those results will show.